Hello everyone, welcome again to the channel. Today I want to share with you some information and stories about the international behavior of the United States, and we will see how all this connects together. So the first one comes from the Middle East. This story is related to something I already reported before in another video, where Israel is mentioning that they are trying to build some kind of Middle East NATO, and the excuse for this is to contain Iran. They portray Iran as this kind of threat for everyone in the Middle East, when we already discussed that it is Israel and the United States who is creating havoc in the Middle East. Anyway, let's go for this one in particular. This story comes from Jordan. It says that Jordan's King Abdullah says he will support a Middle East NATO. And like I said, this is kind of a continuation of the efforts of the United States to destabilize the Middle East. And for example, here says that Jordan is designated by the US as a major non-NATO ally. And so what they want is to put more countries into this so-called Middle East NATO. And they say that Israeli Prime Minister said that Israel was working to build a US-backed military alliance in the region against Iran, with a focus on integrated missile defense systems. And as you know, Israel has recently recovered some ties with Muslim countries in the area, including United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, and has even become a little bit more cozy with Saudi Arabia. So basically what they want is to have some kind of how to say, an excuse to sell more weapons. That's what this is. Number one, first and foremost, the United States and all the military corporations in the United States will be very happy with this kind of alliance, because they will have a lot of clients to sell them weapons, defensive weapons, of course, because that's always the excuse. Is just like NATO. NATO is a defensive alliance. It has nothing aggressive about it. They don't plan to attack anybody. So this will be exactly the same kind of framework, because if they want to copy NATO, then that will have the same result. Then we have this provocation. The US conducts some flyovers, they call it, flyovers over the Strait of Taiwan. So let's go into the details. US Navy P-8A Poseidon reconnaissance plane flew over the Taiwan Strait amid heightened tensions between Washington and Beijing over Taiwan and military activity in the region. So let's take a look at the wording they use here. The United States will continue to fly, sail, and operate anywhere international law allows, including within the Taiwan Strait. And this comes as China challenged the legality of this military activity in the Taiwan Strait, but saying that it is not international waters, according to the Convention on the Law of the Sea, to which, of course, the United States is not a signatory to this Convention of the Law of the Sea. And then the US sends warships through the Taiwan Strait about once a month, and releases statements referring to the waterway as international waters. So this is the kind of contradiction in terms that the United States like to play. They like to play with words. They like to say, "Oh, we are obeying international law. We want to follow all legality and everything," but they don't follow the Convention of the Law of the Sea, and they refer to this particular strait as international waters, even though the convention says otherwise. So they only pretend to follow international law. They only do whatever they want, and then they intentionally provoke a reaction from China. What is the purpose of just sending warships through the strait if China is not allowing it, is not agreeing with it, doesn't like it, and is completely and openly against it? They just do it to have some kind of reaction from them, And then they say U.S. support for Taiwan's independence forces will lead to war. This comes from China. These are very strong words from China as a reaction to U.S. provocation. So just bear in mind that it is the U.S. who is provoking a reaction from China. China is in their own neighborhood. China is not sending warships to some kind of situation that will be similar in the U.S. They are not doing any of that. They live their own life, and it is the U.S. who's meddling with their own issues, the issues between Taiwan and China. The U.S. needs to insert themselves into this situation. And then this is another article about the same topic, and it says U.S. commander says Russia and China's partnership means U.S. prepare for attack on Guam. What a surprise, right? The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command sounded the alarm on China and Russia's growing cooperation, calling it extremely dangerous, and accused Beijing of the largest military build-up since World War II. So why are they accusing Beijing? They are provoking it. So Beijing is taking the measures it considers necessary because it sees a provocation right in its own territorial waters from the US. And then they say that they are sounding the alarm. Oh, China and Russia are working together. Why? I wonder why. No? And let's go back again to the basics. This is all about military spending, because it says China's action means that the US should spend more money on building up one's defenses. So, no surprises here. More money for the military-industrial complex, is more of the same. China has been identified by the Pentagon as a top threat facing the US military, and is used to justify massive military spending. The U.S. planning a military build-up in the Asia-Pacific with a focus on alliance building. China could face a similar situation as Russia has with NATO expansion in Eastern Europe. So they are using the same playbook. No? They are not even very original. It is very transparent what they're doing. They are setting up the theater to create the same kind of situation with China. And they say facing similar pressure from the West, and Russia and China have boosted military and economic ties in recent years. The two countries recently declared there are no limits to their partnership. So this makes only sense. There is a lot of logic into this. Maybe Russia and China on their own don't feel entirely confident in facing the United States. But together, of course, they can do it. And this is, of course, some side effect of the actions of the United States, and then got out of control because they don't think that they are able to take on both Russia and China at the same time. The fact that they cannot invade Russia is only because Russia has the largest nuclear arsenal in the world, and China because it has the largest army in the world. So the two of them together are probably invincible. I don't think it is an innocent alliance. They are just concerned about their own security. Every country needs to be concerned about their own security, but especially military powers like China and Russia, they look for their own survival, so nobody can blame them for that, especially after the continued provocation coming from the United States, which wants to be the sole power in the world. So they continue to say, the most concerning aspect of the war in Ukraine is that the People's Republic of China has declared a no-limit policy in support of Russia. So you see, even they themselves recognize what is the reason for this, They recognize that the situation in Ukraine provoked China into signing a cooperation agreement with Russia, If those two nations were to truly demonstrate and deliver a no limits policy, I think what that means is we are currently in an extremely dangerous time and place in the history of humanity if that were to come true. They are not humanity, This is again the same kind of rhetoric that they use to condemn Russia. Like, oh, the world is against Russia. The world is not against Russia. Only the Western economies, the Western powers are against Russia. Everyone else in the world has no problem, dealing with Russia, have no problems buying Russian products, buying Russian oil, buying Russian gas. Nobody has any problems with China also. All countries in Africa which are working with China together, with developing their infrastructure through credit, they're perfectly happy working with China. Nobody has problems with China. Only the US has problems with China and with Russia. So they say that this is a dangerous time in the history of humanity. This is a dangerous time in the history of the American empire. That's what it is. And they say the US has accused China of planning to support Russia militarily in its war in Ukraine. There is no need for that. Ukraine is already taking care. Russia is winning the war. And if China were to support Russia, what are they going to do about it? They are in no position, no moral position, no military position, no strategic, economic, or any other way to impede China from helping Russia if they were deciding to do it. I don't see the need for it at the moment, but if it were to happen, then they will just need to shut up and take it. This one is again in relationship to the United States and NATO, because this comes from Guantanamo, where this Afghan national was released after 15 years in detention without charge. So he was in prison. They didn't even give him a trial or anything. They just tortured him and probably interrogated him with the kind of interrogation techniques that were already worldwide condemned as torture. But they decided to do it, and they continued to do it, and nobody was able to stop them, He departed the prison and flew to Qatar. Qatar was helping bear some communication between the Taliban and the United States. So this is the man, and if you saw the video or the photo, this is how he was 15 years ago. But let's take a look at what was the justification for taking him in the first place. The US accused him of being a member of Hezb el-Islami, a militia that fought against the Allied invasion of Afghanistan. And this group entered into a peace agreement with the United States Afghan government in 2016. So that's why they decided to liberate him, even though he was probably never part of the group. But then they complain about this. What was his sin? He was defending his own country. He was not a mercenary. He was not doing anything incorrect. He was defending his own country. Even if he was part of this group, which has never been proved, because there was not even a trial, he was just defending his country, He was doing what every citizen can do to defend his country, and that's why the reason why they took him and put him in prison for 15 years. So they declared that his detention was illegal, and they liberated him. There are still in prison 36 detainees in Guantanamo. 19 of them have been recommended for transfer but are waiting to be released. Guantanamo Bay continues to remain open more than 2 decades after it was created. It was open for the same purpose, the war in Afghanistan, the war in terrorism, as they call it. And the first one that said was going to close it was Obama, and he failed. He didn't close it. Now Biden says he's going to close it. I don't think he will close it, but anyway, that's what they continue to say. They continue to say the same thing. So then they complain if Russia is detaining fighters, international fighters that are fighting in Ukraine, which are, according to international law, they are mercenaries. And then they blame the government of the Donetsk People's Republic. They say that there is a sham trial, that there is no legality, that they are violating human rights. And what were they doing in Guantanamo all this time? Then let's go back to NATO and Afghanistan, with the same context. For more than 20 years, NATO and their allies were deployed, and they were attacking Afghanistan for 20 years. They were doing this for 20 years, and the excuse was the United Nations created some kind of document or decision that it was authorized to use force against Afghanistan. This was again a sham. The United Nations is just a sham organization that is an excuse for the United States to enforce their policies everywhere in the world. As we have seen repeatedly, the United Nations is unable to condemn Israel, is unable to condemn the United States in all their illegal dealings around the world, So it doesn't make any sense that the United Nations approved this, because it was never proved that in Afghanistan was responsible for the attacks in the United States in 2001. So why were they attacked? For no reason at all, And they were there for 20 years, and after 20 years, the Taliban came back to power. Soon after they left, and then they tried to evacuate all the people in a very, rushed way, They were basically kind of escaping from Afghanistan. And then they have still the cynical attitude of telling, Afghanistan how they should conduct their own policies in their own country, They say here, any future Afghan government must adhere to Afghanistan international obligations, safeguard the human rights of all Afghans, particularly women, children, and minorities, uphold the rule of law, allow and hinder humanitarian access, and ensure that Afghanistan never again stays as a safe haven for terrorists. It was never a safe haven for terrorists in the first place. No? And the United States is the one that actually creates terrorists around the world, but there has never been a resolution from the United Nations to attack the United States. Have you seen anything like that? Never. You'll probably never see it. Unless the US is defeated militarily, like the way it was Germany in the Second World War, and then there were all the trials against all the Germany officials, military, and everything. That's when the German authorities and German military officers were brought to trial, were brought to justice only after Germany was defeated. So the same will happen with the United States. Unless the United States is defeated, the United States and their military will not face justice. So there won't be justice for anyone in the planet until the United States is militarily defeated. That's the reality of the world as we see it. So no international criminal court will do anything, because they have no authority, they have basically no way to enforce laws or any kind of decisions that will do in a trial. So that's all I wanted to say for now. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and as always I ask you to please like the video, share it in social media, and subscribe to the channel. I hope to see you again very soon. Thank you for watching.